Patrick, guess what came in the mail today?
Oh, what?
This.
Stick it in!
What it do, YouTube? It is your boy, man, Time of MPC the Gang in this piece, and right now, guess what I'm about to do? I'm letting you guess. You guess yet? I'm about to react. Today, I'm about to react to Rebel Ridge 2024 Breakdown. Details you missed and a deeper meaning explained. I watched Rebel Ridge. If you haven't watched Rebel Ridge, this is going to be a spoiler video. You got to go watch it on Netflix right now. Rebel Ridge is a movie that you need to go watch and see before you come. So go ahead and get out the video, go watch Rebel Ridge, then come back later and watch this video with me. That way we both can be learning more about what happened in the movie and why stuff happened the way it did in that movie. You feel me? Before we get into this reaction, I need y'all to do 3 things for me. That is, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Because we're trying to hit 25K by December, and I know you can get us there. Without further ado, let's go and get into this, y'all. There you go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rebel Ridge, the 2024 Netflix hit starring Aaron Pierre and Don Johnson that had all of us Googling civil asset forfeiture and shouting, wait, this is real? This movie kind of came out of nowhere, and I really enjoyed it. So in this video, I'm going to break down why it works so well, the pretty interesting story of its production, and just some details that you might have missed.
I had to watch it twice in order to understand it.
If you're new to this channel, New Rockstars is better known for breaking down like superhero movies and other nerd properties, but we also just break down any movie that we find interesting that you might find interesting. So if you're into this kind of stuff, definitely subscribe to this channel and the other 2 channels of our network.
Subscribe to this channel, y'all. Subscribe.
Okay, we open with Iron Maiden's The Number of the Beast. This music is blasting in the ears of Terry Richmond, a former Marine in MCMAP.
Shout out to every black dude. Every black dude with the name Terry, because my name is Terry. Shout out to everybody. Toast to you. Continue.
The expert biking into the town of Shelby Springs, Louisiana to deliver bail money for his cousin. Terry is played by Aaron Pierre. Casting that itself is a pretty interesting story. All the way back in 2019, John Boyega from the Star Wars sequel films was on board to star in this film, and filming was set to begin in April 2020, but then was delayed due to COVID. Production began a year after that in May 2021 in Louisiana, but about a month into production, John Boyega abruptly left the project. And it happened so fast without warning that speculation just began to swirl that there might have been some conflicts or creative differences, but John Boyega's agent issued a statement claiming that Boyega left for family reasons and that he was still on good terms with everyone else on the project. Now, there was some second actor briefly brought in for the role of Terry, but that actor was replaced after director Jeremy Saulnier, who you might know for directing movies like Green Room that made Professor Charles Xavier a very frightening figure. This director had a Zoom call with Aaron Pierre, who at the time had very few acting credits beside M. Night Shyamalan's Old and Barry Jenkins' The Underground Railroad on Prime Video, but he just knew from that call that this was his guy. And it ended up being a pretty fortuitous path, as Aaron Pierre in this movie is an undeniable action star whose career has gotta only be on the rise at this point. He was for a time attached to Marvel Studios' Mahershala Ali Blade film as we think the villain of that movie before the studio kept delaying that project, and he will be voicing Mufasa in the upcoming Disney Mufasa prequel film. Actor Badge Dale originally played Officer Evan Marston, the cop that rammed Terry's bike and is later revealed to be Summer's good cop Mole Serpico, but due to this movie being delayed so much, in April 2022, David Denman was recast in the role, which is also pretty fortuitous because as a guy probably best known for playing Roy on The Office and also Frank in Mayor of Easttown, he's just really perfect as a guy who initially comes off as a very violent bully, but also has a very clear, undeniable soft side. Also, just a detail to note, while Land's flag patch has a Blue Lives Matter stripe, Marston's patch does not. Now, on a map app on Terry's phone, you can see that he's currently biking through a green area without any residential streets, meaning that there would be no witnesses on this stretch. As he goes over the bridge, Marston's police car suddenly appears behind him from our point of view, and he's clearly just mad that he can't pass this cyclist on this narrow bridge that wouldn't have any shoulder for the cyclist to go on anyway, and this cop is unwilling to wait like 10 damn seconds till they would both be on the other side of the bridge where he would more easily be able to pass him. So Marston decides to swipe Terry's wheel and then pulls a gun on him. And Marston shouts at him saying that he was behind Terry for 2 miles, which we know is a lie based on the timing of the map that we saw. So we end up in a sadly all too common scenario in this country where a trigger happy backup cop shows up, in this case Officer Steve Land, and we see how Terry is detained with no charges. And because he really can't wait an hour for a K9 unit to prove that he has no drugs on him, he decides to consent to these cops searching his bag, where they find $36,000 in cash.
It's a lot of cash you got on you.
It's not illegal.
Well, drug currency is illegal.
Well, it's a good thing it's not that.
And Marston goes on to say,
We're going to hold on to this money. We've concluded from our investigation that this is drug currency.
No.
So what we are seeing here is called civil asset forfeiture. This is a real process in which law enforcement in the United States can seize assets, including cash, cars, other goods, simply under the suspicion that those assets are being used in illegal activity without necessarily charging the owners of those assets with any wrongdoing. There was a 2014 episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver that went deep into this. I actually suspect that the director, Jeremy Saulnier, watched that episode when he was developing this film. He did admit that he did some initial research, and then when he was writing it, he just kept researching more and more into how this actually works. But really the way it works is law enforcement in effect can keep any money they take, and the cases bizarrely list the seized asset itself as the defendant. So like United States versus a certain amount of money in cash. And since many of the owners of these assets can't really afford lawyers or the time to get the money back, a lot of people just have to walk away because the asset itself doesn't have a presumption of innocence. Really, civil forfeiture was used during the Prohibition era to fight back against organized crime, and since the 80s, really as a tactic in the war on drugs, as a way to rein in the drug trade and cartels, and in some cases even return money to victims. But in more recent years, it has come under increasing scrutiny as a way that some corrupt law enforcement agencies have taken large sums of money from really just innocent people who were just holding cash for any number of reasons. eBay purchases, contractor work, bail money. In my case, I definitely was like driving around for a week with over $10,000 of cash just because I was getting married that weekend and we needed money to pay the different contractors and vendors that we were working with. But if a cop thinks that you might be using that cash for drug reasons, they can keep it forever. And then these cops sometimes use it for just crazy discretionary spending that they want. In 2019, civil asset forfeiture was ruled unconstitutional by a judge in South Carolina. And in 2020, a study found that the median cash forfeiture amount across 21 states was just $1,276, which you may say, oh, that doesn't seem like too much. But think about if you're someone who needs that money. That could make all the world of a difference to the people who are being affected by this, and it's an amount that tells us that most of these stops have nothing to do with drug dealers, because if you're a drug dealer, you're gonna have a lot more cash than that on you. So on his way into the courthouse, I like how Terry initially passes Summer, played by Anne Sophia Robb, whom you might remember as that girl who made you cry in The Bridge to Terabithia, and she's initially just advising some random defense.
Cry. She made me cry plenty of times, even in my sleep. Because she was that pretty girl. Damn, fool.
Not to wear shorts in front of the judge, and a little bit later in the movie this guy still shows up to his trial in shorts because that's how he rolls, and she says Godspeed. Summer explains to Terry the civil forfeiture process, and she brings up this specific anecdote.
Someone in permits told me he bought a $900 margarita machine for Cinco de Mayo.
Haha, so this is what proves that the director watched that John Oliver episode, because it comes from a real case in Texas in 2008 that was mentioned by John Oliver in that episode.
They bought a margarita machine. They were literally using this money as their own personal slush fund.
We also learn about Terry's cousin Mike, whom he's trying to bail out.
Ended up a cooperating witness on a capital murder charge. Duty help put away was pretty high up in the game, so.
Okay. And if Mike ends up in a state facility?
They spotted, they'll get swarmed.
Yikes.
Ooh, so now we know the stakes of why Mike needs to be bailed out before the transfer. And the only reason he's being transferred is because the department's seizure of so much cash is letting them upgrade to a bigger police station and a bigger jail. Otherwise, he'd be able to just stay locally in town. And those cops use this knowledge about Mike, knowing that he will be a target when he gets to state corrections, and that would cover up the way in which he was initially arrested. So on his phone, Terry locates the police station on his app, and he realizes that the station is surrounded by woods, which tells him that there's just one access road, and there are other ways to sneak up on that station, which he uses in the final act of the movie. And we see how Terry is just waiting early before Sims arrives at the station with 2 coffees, just to flatter her, so that she'd be more willing to let him charge his low battery phone. But when he plugs it in, if you listen closely, you can hear the beep of him starting the audio record function.
Morning, Jess.
Okay, can you describe suspect?
And this is because he's not in his office expecting to make an actual police report over the cops robbing him. He's really just here to scope out the station, including the number of officers on duty and all of their names and their schedule, also where the armory and property room is. Don Johnson plays Chief Sandy Byrne. Don Johnson is wonderful, not just as the dad to Madam Webb, Dakota Johnson, but he's played a number of wonderful roles over the years, including similar roles to Chief Byrne in this movie, including HBO's Watchmen and in Django Unchained. Here he reads from the police report.
Now, you sustained minor injuries after colliding with a patrol vehicle, and you were
I
offered
knew he
but
looked
refused.
familiar, but I just couldn't just get his name up.
Seems like to me any harm that's come to you is of your own
He
doing.
was at
I just
Candyland.
noted that they wrote it up as Terry being the one to
He was
collide with the patrol
Candyland.
car, not the other way around. So Terry offers a deal where he's going to let them keep some money, and Chief seems to agree to it. And Terry returns at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, but 3 minutes late, having just missed the corrections bus taking away his cousin. But he was only late because he stopped by Three Birds Bakery, which was the same place he went with Summer, to get a dozen donuts for these cops. So Terry rides after the bus to tell Mike to get into protective custody as soon as he can at state corrections. But really, this is going to be the last time he sees his cousin alive. He calls Mr. Liu about the money order, but he finds just mentioning the Chinese restaurant where he works got this restaurant raided by the local PD, which already tells him that something is weird. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Autumn's here, and if you're feeling stressed by the thought of going back to school, something excuse if you quit out the single one so you can get permission to yours. Mike told me some can support you during Smurf or charge, and that the judge Austin meets him on your first month. There's a pretty well constructed scene here where Summer finds Terry at the courthouse and meets him outside to tell him that Mike shouldn't have been kept that long on a misdemeanor charge, and that the judge walked in on her looking at the file. And we stay on this conversation, and I think just one unbroken shot without cutting, but the actors move to various different hidden spots around corners just to vary up the shot composition so that while they're dropping all this exposition, they keep it visually interesting. And that's one thing that the director does throughout this movie. It's pretty simply shot and just a few different locations, but he always moves the camera in ways that just keep us watching. He always keeps things moving. But definitely my favorite scene in this movie is Terry meeting Chief in front of the station, while inside Sims and Lan are having to reboot the Wi-Fi to just figure out exactly who Terry is and what he can do. And they realize what MCMAP stands for as he's walking Chief through a different acronym.
That
Peace,
man was
primate.
a bad motherfucker. He stayed back from serving in Iraq or wherever he was supposed to have been at. He stayed back to help train the officers on combat. So he was the combat trainer. Dude was he he was whooping ass all movie, bro. He was kicking ass, straight up ass all movie, man. I swear, ever since that part right there, from there to the end, he was whooping ass and fucking taking guns. He broke into the police facility, took his money, took part of his money, and left. Tried to leave, but it didn't go out the way. It didn't go the way he wanted it to. So I can't tell you more. You gotta watch the movie you gotta watch the movie yourself. You gotta watch the movie yourself in order to understand what happened truly. What really happened, bro. For real. Watch this.
Plan, alternate plan, contingency plan, and E, which he never reveals what it really means, but it means emergency. Meanwhile, finally, Sims realizes that Terry is in the freaking photo of the MCMAP page on Wikipedia. So once Chief realizes he's talking to a human weapon, a practical Rambo, he backs away and draws his firearm.
You shouldn't have let that man get that close up on you, though. That's the thing, bro.
So I think my favorite thing about this movie is watching Terry anytime he's in action, because here he smartly uses Chief as a shield, and then he pushes Chief into Lan, and then he distributes his time evenly between the two men. He takes down each one just long enough for him to be able to go back to the other one. And even though he quickly disarms each of their firearms, he never points any deadly weapon at anyone in this movie. He just empties the weapon and then points any weapons he arms himself with downward toward the ground, which is not just a safe way of doing it. It shows them that he is deadly, but he's not trying to kill kill them. And we learn how Terry's plan is to just do whatever necessary to get enough bail money there in time, but to do so using zero lethal means. His hope is to get sent to the same state corrections where his cousin is so that he can try to protect him for the limited time that he will be there. And notice how he makes Sims do the escorting out, assuming that she would be the least able or maybe the least likely to kill him. He notes that she still drives an old Crown Vic despite the other cops getting newer Chargers, which she says is for a diversified fleet in case of a recall, according to Chief, but later she will use that older tank of a Crown Vic to ram Chief off the road. So Terry's able to make the bail payment and Summer gets the judge to sign. The cops catch up to him and Lan, of course, tases him without it being necessary at all. Terry rips the taser gun out of his hands. It's so cool. But Summer pulls out her phone to keep the cops from hurting him further. And notice how Marston gives her a look, and it's because he is secretly her contact, Serpico. Marston and Chief drive Terry to the hospital, and on the way, Chief explains that they're the only town left out of 6 in the parish that still has their own police department, and that they now have to oversee all the other towns, which is how they were able to raid the Chinese restaurant. This also establishes the Chief's motivation. He's not like fully evil or doing all this out of spite. Like, yeah, he's not a good guy, but really for him and his cops, this is kind of like an existential issue for them. Of course, it's only existential because of, you know, the really horrible shit they've done in the past, but at least we understand the economic pressures they're under. And it's kind of like a deeper theme in this movie. When people's wallets are at stake, they will do crazy things to preserve that. So they bring Terry to the hospital, they give him $26,000 and tell him that they bought the truck that he wanted, and this is all a way to make him whole because Mike got stabbed. And yes, Mike died. Terry mourns his cousin, whose ankle was still cuffed to the gurney, even though he's pronounced dead, and Terry puts on Mike's medical bracelet to remember him for the rest of the movie. Summer gives Terry a ride out of town, but due to her own digging into the town, detaining perps on misdemeanor charges for 90 days, the corrupt cops inject her with heroin while she's sleeping so that she'll fail the drug test at work. And who called in that drug test? Probably the same people. This will lose her career given her history with drugs. She reveals that it wasn't just drugs, it was because of theft. And she said that she stole a mower when it had a snowblower attachment to it, and that's what bumped it up to grand theft and thus a felony. And think about it, we're in Louisiana. Why would there be a snowblower attachment to the mower? It makes me think that like someone wanted to put her away from her kid, right? Like her ex-husband had like a cop friend who's just like, here, attach this thing to it, and then she'll be like taken away for life. Lan pulls over Terry and doesn't use his lights so that the dashboard cam wouldn't activate. It seems like the chief was willing initially to let Terry go until Terry drove back to help Summer, and that these cops would now be worried what Summer had told Terry. So they use Lan to try to plant a gun in Terry's truck, and Terry takes a shot in the shoulder, but then is able to disarm Lan, and it's so satisfying to see him use Lan's taser on him and gets him right in the neck. And whereas the taser didn't take down Terry, it drops Lan like a sack of dirt. So Terry meets up with Summer at the Chinese restaurant. He slaps the camper's Marine Corps decal, meaning that he knows the son, Ken, probably from the Corps. He tells Summer that Mr. Liu is a Korean war vet, but as a Chinese man, he fought for the North Koreans, which is just a fun detail, her reacting to it, saying, well, we're all together now. There's also a small detail where Terry noted earlier that Ken uses an accent when he takes orders because it would be better for business here.
Call on Chinese, please hold.
No, it's Terry. Can you put me through to Mr. Liu?
Oh, what up, G?
What's up?
Hang on a sec.
And I like how in this scene, they follow up with it when Ken is taking orders over the phone while talking to Summer. Since the cops won't let them walk away, Terry and Summer decide to bring the fire. Terry asks Summer about her mole on the force, codenamed Serpico. And Serpico is a reference to the 1973 Sidney Lumet Al Pacino film Serpico, which is about corruption in the New York Police Department and a whistleblower that led to the Knapp Commission investigation, which seems like what's going to happen in this small town. The clerk, Elliot, gets them to think back 2 years to the civil case, which leads them to the judge, played by James Cromwell, and he explains how that lawsuit so bankrupted the town, which really led them to have to rely on civil forfeiture to fund their municipal services. And I like how he includes that they also include a tax cut. So it's not just like trying to survive, there's also total greed that's leading this. Summer realizes that the 90-day wait period was because the dash cam footage is deleted after 90 days if it's not subpoenaed or held. Terry asks,
I saw Mike's video. What they do to him? Enough to get us sued. You seen it? No. Let me guess. You don't want to know.
I find it interesting that this movie never shows us what was on Mike's video. I think they did it to keep the movie focused on the general economic corruption of the chief, but I can also understand that if for some viewers, it feels like this movie is like holding back in this moment. But I think the script tries to balance it by including thematic lines like this.
Yeah, well, that history down here, for a lot of people, it's got a pretty foul funk to it.
But Terry and Summer are able to get the SD cards of the dash cam footage before the cops who smashed those drives are able to burn the place down. Summer, though, goes back for her urine sample, and this decision gets her kidnapped. Terry uses a cop to radio Lan, who tells him to meet at Rebel Ridge, the one time this movie actually says the title of the movie. Now, they don't really go into it, but I feel like there must be some Confederate history to this area's name. Like, it's probably a ridge where Confederate soldiers made a stand against Union soldiers, and I think it's appropriate that Terry does not confront them on that turf.
In fact,
because
the place where Union soldiers, well, Confederate soldiers held off against Union soldiers. That's the war ground. That's one of the war grounds. So, history fact, that actually happened. You're welcome.
that's not a battle that he, or really this movie, are focused on fighting. And I think in that way, it's pretty appropriate to name this movie Rebel Ridge, because it's kind of like a way of saying, I'm not gonna fight you where you want me to fight you. I'm gonna fight you where it's gonna hurt you the most. In general, this movie is like denying the audience a real bloody battle over the big issues that are in our heads and really just saying, hey, just follow the money. So that's what Terry does. He takes the battle to their most valuable treasure pot, the police station evidence room with all the weapons and the cash.
So I was thinking, what if we just walk away?
Well, now you're starting to talk.
But then I was like,
Nah.
While Lan gets out some drugs to inject Summer again, there is a quick shot of Marston freeing that young cop that Terry used as a diversion. Just little clues as the movie goes on that Marston, aside from the first scene where he's a total dick, as the movie goes, is just revealing himself to be pretty different than Lan. Terry hits Chief with a beanbag round and mistakenly assumes that Sims is Serpico. Now, she is not Serpico, so she points a gun at him, but she's also not fully corrupt. When Lan prepares to kill Terry, Marston pulls a gun on him, and Terry realizes that Marston, not Sims, is Serpico. Chief shoots Marston in the leg, thinking it's a simple wound, but he must have nicked an artery, so Marston is bleeding out heavily. And the way Chief starts to justify it to the other cops, it's clear he's about to finish him off.
We all saw it. It was either him or Steve.
It's him or all of us.
So Terry drags them to safety and begins hitting them with all the flashbang grenades and the dazzlers that Chief had talked about earlier. These are all non-lethal, or at least less than lethal measures, while they're responding with deadly gunfire. And Terry makes his moves. We have to cut away before the stomp, but yeah, he really just breaks an elbow, and that's as as it gets. For the next cop, Aaron Pierre throws this stunt actor over his shoulder and then crawls under the car to grab Lan, and it's all done in one shot. Really, I'm loving this sequence because Marston also gave us a ticking clock, because Terry needs to get to the car with Summer in it and flash the lights on to start recording the dash cam in under 2 minutes so that it would retroactively capture the recording window of everything that had gone down. So he really cannot stop moving. Now, once he turns on the lights, Terry could escape with Summer, but he goes back for Marston. Lan gets a drop on Terry, but because Terry had unloaded the shotgun earlier from all those deadly slugs that Lan said to load in it, the shotgun is empty now. So they're able to get away, but because they have a flat tire, Chief catches up to them, and while the cops plan to surround them and ram them, Sims makes a hero move. She rams her Crown Vic into the Chief's SUV. Remember earlier in the heat of the crossfire, that young cop had asked her,
I'm not sure who to shoot at.
Then maybe don't shoot.
So I think from that we can assume that a lot of these other cops weren't really going along with what the chief was ordering. So they escort Terry to the Samaritan Hospital, and we see Terry's priorities in real time. He carries Summer, and then all in one shot, he grabs an axe from the fire extinguisher and he runs back to the trunk of the car to hack out the DVR to make sure no crooked cop can take it. In fact, even moments after he gets it, we see another cop run over to the trunk to check and be like, oh, nuts. And that's really just where we end the movie. It's just a confined story about one man going up against small town corruption and not wanting to hurt anyone in the process, but really just this film as a whole is just shedding light on an issue that is
good
total
movie,
bullshit
yo.
and affects all of us. Comment down below with what you thought about this movie. Follow me at EA Voss. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
I like this video a lot because it broke down a lot more things than what I had seen inside the movie, and a few of these things I didn't know, like who's a few of these actors was. Like, I didn't know dude played in Django, and I watched Django like probably like 4 or 5 times, and I couldn't remember his face. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm a noob. Really, I'm a veteran, but I'm not a veteran like military veteran. Don't get me wrong, bro. I've never been in the military at all, but I'm talking about like veteran movie watcher. It was a good. That was a good movie, bro. Y'all gotta go watch it. If you haven't watched it, go watch Rebel Ridge. It is a placard for Black history. Also, what we have to deal with police, corrupt police, how police treat black people, even the black people who are on their force. So, please, go watch that movie to get your own opinion on it. You know, how you feel about it. You can watch it as well. You can react to it as well. Do what you say what you want to say about it. Give your opinion on it. And if people love you enough to believe in your opinion, guess what? You're doing a good job. If not, however, I don't give a damn whether you do or don't. But guess what? I do know that I like this video. And if I like it, that means what? That means you like this. So go hit that like button, share this with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Hit that post notification bell to get notified every time we post, and drop a comment what you want me to react to next. I am Maintain. I am your host. And I'm not Jey Uso. And I'm not the IC champ. I am, in fact, the one, the only world heavyweight champ. You feel me? Yeet.